actually show you what I'm doing. So, for those who missed it, this is before, this is the after. I cropped the image down to get rid of a little bit of the white sky. I want this to look a little bit more like we're working at night, so I changed the temperature to blue and I custom painted some of the background so it wasn't the same exact blue to make Jack merge into it too much. That's basically all that was done. And I'm going to continue. So I'm making my cursor a little bit smaller so I can custom add some highlights as well. And some lowlights. I'm going to show the mask overlay so I can see where exactly I'm painting. And while the mask overlay is active, it's going to be red. Like I said, Lightroom is a non-destructive editing tool, so I can just adjust the layer mask as necessary. Giving it a soft edge because I don't want this to be a hard edge type of highlight. Zoom out, get rid of the overlay, and now I can just the highlights as I see necessary. Just gonna make the background not quite so blue. Oop, not quite that yellow. Just somewhere in between. I went back to the adjustment brush because as I was saying before, the second cut was this is too dark. I want this to be able to show a little bit more detail. Sending back the shadows, back the highlights a little bit. I'm gonna take a side-by-side look for a second. And it still looks like it's happening during the day, so I'm gonna back up with the blue a little bit. I use the radio filter to kind of give Jack a little bit of a highlight. And I think that's all I'm gonna really do with this one. I did what I wanted. I wanted to make it seem like it wasn't taking too much during the, well, it's 2, 3 in the afternoon that it was. And since I have the screens working again, I'm going to go back to the Maleficent pictures for a moment. Especially since it took forever for that to save. So this is the magic effect that I had applied. In order to make it seem like it's happening more in this world, which supposedly it is, I'm going to use the adjustment brush. And very sloppily give her a blue outline to where I want the magic to have taken effect. Anyway. And remember, because the light's coming from this way, as is one of my flashes, I can easily see, you know, right here she's not going to get blue, but she is going to get blue right here. A little bit under her hands, a little bit of this hand. I'm going to really color it up a little bit. the exposure but that accurate, but I am going to clean this up with the erase tool a little bit. Because what is going to happen next is I'm going to actually duplicate this layer, but if I duplicate it with some sloppy edges, then I'm going to have a lot of difficulty getting rid of those sloppy edges. Because unlike Photoshop, this is not really a layered program, so I would have to temporarily move one of the nodes away from the other, and then that just gets to be a big mess, so I'm just going to do this now. And what's neat is, because I'm painting, I had auto mask on, so when I clicked the black, it automatically just added the adjustment brush to just the colors that match the initial click area the most, which really helps in places like this where I don't want the entire thing to be affected by color, just some of it. As you can see the effect right there. So, because I think she needs a little bit more blue because the magic is right here, I'm going to right click the dot, hit duplicate, and automatically duplicates all the area that I had selected before. I don't think her bazooms need to be quite so blue, so I'm gonna back off on this a little bit, back off on on her chest. But I kind of like where we're at with the rest of the initiative. Oh, that's not the true before after. When you bring this into other programs like the Photoshop or a different plugin, Lightroom will automatically make a duplicate in case you want to preserve the original. So this is the true original. And this is what we have now. There's also a crop done, so if you notice an image shift, that was due to the crop. And to finish this out, I'm going to make sure there's no aberration or profile corrections that need to be made. And use the highlight brush. Next piece, like I said, that day my Flash was absolutely not working all day, but I did like how this pose came out, so I'm going to try and do a little bit of recovery. Immediately going to change the exposure. You can tell it's way too yellow, so I'm going to add more blue to it. I don't know how much you can tell, but I can tell that this is very grainy, so I'm going to not get rid of that. I'm going to adjust the noise reduction and the sharpness. So noise reduction gets rid of the noise, obviously, and the sharpening is going to make sure that some of the details don't get smoothed out because of the noise reduction, and that is a consequence. If you mess with noise reduction, you're going to have to mess with sharpening. You really can't just do one without the other, or else it's going to be people are going to be able to tell that you did a little bit too much photoshopping. Unfortunately, I don't remember the DC superhero this person was supposed to be. It was kind of a DC hero type of day. I was a Marvel girl growing up. So, when people say, oh yeah, I'm this character, I'm a little bit clueless about that. Although very recently I have gotten into The Flash, and the show is my absolute favorite thing to watch. So even though this would have been like a very good noir type of piece, I did want to do a preliminary version where you can actually see her, you can see more of the detail in her outfit and the makeup that she did. What I can do is create a virtual copy. Actually, let me. Okay, this is a copy, so. I'm now working in the virtual copy, and let's see what a noir type of image would look. How I'm imagining it, it would be more of a black and white. Instead of just desaturating, I'm going to give it the vibrance, the saturation. I'm still gonna mess with the highlights and shadows, because a true black and white picture is not just desaturating everything. It's paying attention to the relations between how the colors really would happen. I'm not really good at describing it. Too long, didn't read. Control Shift U in Photoshop is not a black and white image. I mean, here you can see me playing with the highlights, and it's affecting something in the background. I can still evoke a certain mood. This is kind of like what I imagine hitting the desaturation button, but if you want to get more of a vintage feel, you're going to get rid of a lot of the, not all, but you're going to get rid of a lot of the contrast. I'm going to hit that noise reduction for a moment. Sharpening. I'm trying to remember how to do it. There is a way to give a sort of there we go. The old style film type of image. And I don't do it too often, so I don't really remember how to do it. This is kind of like an old style film. I think what I want to do is less of that. And more of what I was doing with Jack Skellington, where I gave him the central highlight. So it's not quite a vignette, just paying attention to the lightness and darkness of things. And more before after. Well, not the true before after, because it's considering my other edit to be the before, but I think I like this piece. I mean, this kind of looked like she was a true Ariel Ace type of character, and somebody asked for her photo. And really quickly, what I want to do is emphasize her eyes a little bit more, and I do this in color as well. Okay. So I'm going to give her eyes a little bit of emphasis. I'm going to brighten the brights, increase some of the contrast. And there, I think they pop a little bit more. Can't really do it before or after, but if this, I think I like that a little bit better. And so I'm going to mark this one as flag for finish. I'm going to redo an image because if the screen wasn't recording properly, the entire tutorial was skipped out on. So this is, like I said before, this is the couple who started the event. It's to benefit young children, and everybody was dressed up as superheroes and supervillains. The kids, for the first time, really got to be called the names of their idols, which is really, really cute with a lot of them. And this is straight out of camera. I want to do a little bit of editing, so what I'm going to do first is remove any aberration, do the lens profile corrections. Going to crop down to get a lot of that building out of there because that's not what we care about. We care more about the subjects. That was to make sure everything was straight. I'm going to work with the shadows and highlights in contrast to make them pop a little bit. That's the partial before and after. I'm going to give them a little bit of vignette. I'm going to up the clarity to about 17. Not too high, not too low. And that is marked as flag. Let's see, we're going to work on Solomon Grundy for a moment. Now there's two I have of him, and I had asked the model to actually swing this at me because something in motion is infinitely more interesting than had he just been posing and the hook just hanging straight down. Or actually would have been hanging this way if it was straight down. So I asked him to swing it, and if I felt like I was in danger, I could just move. And because I had moved to get out of the way a little bit, because that did come close, he's not centered like he should, so I'm going to bring it down a little bit. I'm going to lower the highlights and shadows and contrast immediately, because I want to pull out the details as much as possible. So this more of a grungy type of aspect. Give a highlight priority. I think I'm gonna leave the caution dog running free because I don't know, maybe Grundy is the dog that's being talked about. He's earning his temporary keep by keeping people away. I'm gonna see how much this tool is going to get rid of this. I get bothered by little things like corners being ordered up wrong. Nope, I'm going to fix that in Photoshop. If I felt like I was in danger, I could just move. So I kind of have what I want to do in Lightroom. I'm going to pull this out into Color Efex Pro, and this is part of the Nik software program that is now free. And it's editing a copy, so when I do the before after, it's not going to show the pure before anymore. It's going to show where I currently am in the image. And if you're unfamiliar with Nik Pro, it is free. It's a combination of the old Nik software plus anything that Google came up with when they bought the company a couple of years ago. And I think there's roughly between 50 and 100 individual filters you can use, and once the software is actually open, you can see that you can layer them, you can shift the order of the layers, you can use adjustment brushes. It's a very, very good program, and it's very surprising that it was free. There was a concern that once it went free, support for it would go away, but that's not something I've experienced. does not take this long to start up. It may be because I am streaming at the moment. There we go. So like these are some recipes that the the plugin automatically gives you. What I can choose to do is use some of these presets. I think I'm actually going to play with this one. Oh, and you can do the before and after, so I can just pull this across and see how I like it, or have a side by side. I kind of like doing this because I don't have to expose the entire thing if I don't want to. I think I'm gonna go with this one. I'm gonna save it. I'm always taking this for forever as I'm looking for the appropriate sky for the Maleficent image. Maleficent. So I'm not exactly looking at the chat at the moment, so if you say that I'm an asshole or something, I can't see it for a few minutes. So go ahead, go crazy. Nah, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to be child safe in this stream. You can say I'm a butthole. Or you could have, I'm back now. Nah, it's fair. So I did choose something that we're going to have in the background of this, and that will be fun, but I just want to finish with Grundy first. There we go. So that might be a little bit unnecessarily rough on just his face. So I'm going to adjust the noise and smooth that out just a little bit. There. I'll back off on one of them. Don't want him to exactly be the poster boy for some, makeup. So we got this swing, that was absolutely perfect. And we have this kind of grunge texture for the entire background. I'm going to up that a little bit by upping the clarity. Maybe not so much. I'm giving him more of a kind of vignette. There we go. That is absolutely what I am looking for right there. He looks kind of scary, very creepy dude, swinging a chain at me. I'll give this a test crop to kind of make it a little bit more claustrophobic, like more like I'm in immediate danger. Yeah, and I think this is good. I don't need to bring it into Photoshop to get rid of that corner anymore. It's more of a claustrophobic, like, oh crap, I'm gonna get a attack type of look. And I got this perfect motion blur of this swinging at me that does not need artificial change. I kind of wish that there was somebody in the corner here looking at us, but I think this caution dog running free is actually very funny, kind of suits the image. Yes, I'm gonna mark this as finished. I'll flag this pick. And let's see what the next image will be. Actually, no. The next image is going to be Morphosis. Stop folder. And go ahead. Gotta make sure they're tilted because I did have the camera tilted a little bit. Copy the background. I'm so glad I got this room working again. And I copy everything because I need to make sure that if I screw up, I can always go back. I'm gonna double click this, bring up the layer style, and I'm going to adjust. First of all, I'm going to see if I can adjust to just make this pop into the background. If not, which appears to be the case, maybe. Oh, there we go, there we go. Oh, so close. Actually, that looks pretty good. I'm going to have to paint out some areas that didn't blend properly. And I'm going to pull up my my drawing tablet for this. Make sure to have your layer mask on so you can do the painting. I'm kind of against erasing things if you don't know if you're going to need something back. Change this opacity to 100. I'm just going to paint where these guys should not be coming in. Seems as worked well for the most part. I just want to fine tune some pieces, like parts of the house obviously aren't going to have the sky in it, and the tree leaves are not going to have the sky in it. Some of it I can't immediately tell, which could be a problem. I want to duplicate this layer. Ooh. Okay, anyway, that's not what I want to do. Let's see if I can mess with the shadows and highlights before I get into Lightroom. That would be accident. But I do want to get rid of this right here, because I did not initially notice while I was flipping layers that this guy had overridden the path. I can just click on and off to make sure everything is appearing how I want it to. It is. I'm going to merge everything to one layer. Whoops. I did not see the edge is right there, so I'm going to undo that. And now to get rid of this little, I don't know what to call it. So I'm going to get the lasso tool and just select around it. Now, Photoshop has had this for a few years, and GIMP has this now too, where there's the content aware fill, where you can just select something and either hit Control Shift 5 or Control Delete, and it will just get rid of whatever you had selected and kind of paste around it with the relevant images, or the relevant surrounding area. So that is super helpful in things like this, where I don't want to individually clone out whatever that was in the background. I'm going to merge this as one layer, and going to wait for this saving to finish. I can't cancel it. Nah, I can't save over my save. Oh, it's stuck at that 98% save, so we're going to skip to something else while that is finishing. We'll go back to Maleficent, just because this kind of gives the opportunity to add some magic, and adding magic is always fun. Now, why do I always lower the highlights and raise the shadows? It's because when I add contrast, it would... Oh, I'll show you. If I just add contrast, it just blows out her face more, makes the darks darker. If I do the highlights ahead of time, it makes sure that her face doesn't get blown out. And that's kind of why I do that. It's a personal preference. I mean, I can do it after, but I like doing it first. So that's how I want to get started with that. I'll check the Photoshop file real quick. Nope, still saving. So I'm going to bring this into one of my plugins. I think I have like 3 or 4 that I actively use. And unfortunately, loading both is taking a little bit. We'll go back and look. Just because this kind of gives the opportunity to add some magic. it's still saving. This is still loading. So, while we're doing this, I'm going to talk about what's happening this Friday. This Friday is TempleCon in Warwick, Rhode Island. I will be there on, as far as I know at the moment, just Friday. This is my vacation, so I'm just going to be with my boyfriend through most of the weekend. Ah, there we go. So I will be at TempleCon at least Friday. We might make an appearance Saturday. We do not have tickets. We'll be probably hanging around outside talking to our Red Fork Empire friends. There's a friend that's coming from Colorado that I have to meet for the first time. The following weekend, I might be doing a spontaneous shoot. It is a holiday weekend on Monday, so I'll have an extra day in Massachusetts. The weekend after, I am doing a shoot for Glimmerdark, Jeff Mock's Glimmerdark, but it's going to happen in February 2017, so that will be a fun shoot to do. And in October, I believe, I will be doing several shoots. Another one will be for Kitty Cat, the opera singer, possibly wearing Kristen Costa designs. So that'll be fun to do. So Maleficent, Melly. I'm gonna bring back the green power. Yep, gotta turn glow on. And if you are going to chat with me, it would be easier if you do it in the Twitch chat, just because I cannot click over to Photoshop while I'm doing this. And I'm trying to keep my phone exclusively for music purposes. I have like 9 Facebook messages open, and I can't get to it at the moment. So I am, as you can tell, I'm a huge fan of using magic. But you know, we all are, or else we would not be doing a lot of cosplay. If we wanted to stay grounded in the real world, so many people wouldn't be invested in cosplay. It's fun, it's amazing, and I have people that I admire in the field. Unfortunately, I'm not great at pronouncing the individual's name, but he dates Becca Noel, and some of his cosplay editing with magic and different effects is some of my favorite in the field. I would absolutely love to watch one of his sessions if he was to ever put one online. And as you can see, I don't like sticking with the same effect. I'll switch it up to give it sort of a texture. Blend it, there we go. And the blender is one of my favorites. You gotta use it sparingly though, because it will blend a little bit too much. Save this. Strokes. And while that's saving, we're gonna check on this save that's still going. This is just gonna pop up the save version a little bit. But like I said, I have some shoots arranged for Jeff Mock's Glimmerdark. It's going to be really fun. Still working out exactly what is going to be done. Um, we're doing a shoot with the Seelie and the Unseelie, which is not something I've ever been really clear on. I know one is maybe a dark fae and a light fae. I'm going to see if I can figure out what it is and hopefully get sort of tarot type of look. But as we get closer to the date, we'll see exactly what it is or how it's going to turn out. I do know that my boyfriend Brett Kelly, the art mercenary, is going to be a makeup artist, which will be fun. If I'm remembered correctly, he's going to be Boris, who is the one who wore the animal skull in the shoot I did earlier this summer. There's also going to be Sky Whirlwind, I believe the Mine, and a few other characters that are going to be new to the scene, as well as the social media intern. Ah, it's finally saved. It took legitimately about 10 minutes, and it doesn't even have the ground piece cut out. But now that I've merged and it's only 92 megabytes now instead of half a gig, it should save faster. Yeah, see, it's 91% already. So this will be overwritten in a second. But we have magic, and we have some glows to add. Now I'll do it with the brush. I'm selecting the magic because I want to... Let's see what individual tooling around with it I can do. Such as messing with the clarity. Can make a new brush. And you can see how it's selecting weirdly because I have the auto mask on, so because I selected black, it's selecting all of the nearest blacks. It's finally saved. If you're going to TempleCon this year, I've never been. This is going to be my very first time. Like I said, I'm only going to be there Friday. Mostly to see Red Fork people, because I haven't seen some in most of the summer because of work. And I'm going to meet a friend from Colorado who I met through my letter writing days. And I believe it will be very fun. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to bring both of these as layers in Photoshop. And as much as I like Blender, it didn't do everything I wanted it to do. So I'm gonna add an adjustment mask. Kind of going to, oops, like these two areas. And render clouds. That's a little bit more like it. So I did get rid of some of the magic. I'm going to bring some back. I'm going to use dodge tool. And like I said, this is why you want to use adjustment mask. You don't want to erase anything because you don't know what you're going to want back. And I am much more fond of how this turned out. So I'm going to merge as one layer, save it. I have to close that now because it is now finished in Lightroom. And while that's saving, we can look at this. She has the sky now; it's not blown out anymore. And she mess with the highlights once again. Looks like there's more flash on her face, so let's make that less noticeable by that. Maybe add a little bit of darkness as well. I'm going to preemptively give her a highlight priority. And I kind of clicked and dragged up really quickly to get a non-static magicalness. I think I'll just end up putting that in Particle Shop and just giving it generic magic. Not generic, but something else. One thing that continuously irks me about Lightroom is I cannot zoom out further than this. So I kind of have to do this sort of mode. of really don't care for showing much of the ground, so I'm dropping out of focus. I'm making it darker, kind of making the brightest parts towards the center. And to bring this into Photoshop. No. Alright, stop. And waiting for that to open, so oh, that's still saving, that's why. And I kind of clicked and dragged up really quickly to do a non-static. I think I'll just end up doing that tonight for sure. Not dramatic, but there we go. So because this is blue, I'm gonna stick with the blue theme. Go back to the starter pack and start with space. Space is very, very hard to predict, and that's why it's like one of my favorites. I'm gonna zoom in a little bit so you can see the effects a little bit more. I'm gonna switch over to debris. Add some lightness. Ooh, and that's a little bit big, but kind of quick drag to kind of show a little bit of sparkle, not too much. I don't want to overpower anything. This is one of those times where you want to start out with the darkest color, get a smaller brush, go over with a slightly lighter color, get a different brush, and go over it with a much lighter color. Give Blender a quick, yeah. So what Blender did is it took a sampling of every single layer and just kind of mushed it all together, and I think that's a little bit too much. So the first one is fine. I'm going to lower the brush size and kind of, yeah. It's a little bit too strong to use again, I guess. Cluster, it can be okay, it's not something I want to use for this one. If I was going to use it, it should have been towards the beginning so I can make more of a trail, but it doesn't lend itself to working as well as a combination of brushes does. And there's light, but it's also not one of my favorites. Wild grain I will use from time to time, but it is very large. And superhero, it's not my favorite. I do use it from time to time, but I have to have a clear image in my head of how I want it to look, so I don't play around with superhero too much. So I'm going to save this, fresh up the contents. Space is very, very hard to predict, and that's why I think this is one of my favorites. other brushes that I could also download. I think they're a little bit superfluous. The starter pack and the exclusive pack are very good. They have some fire, which in my opinion doesn't look like fire. They have hair and fur that doesn't really look like hair and fur to me. They have some cloud images that look like I would be better off getting a free stamp from DeviantArt. And at $30 a set, I'm not exactly willing to end up with a brush set that I absolutely hate, so I don't even bother with it. So, there we go, we got our magic set. Going to give it a bit of a glow. Actually, let me undo that and undo the auto mask. So it can just glow. I'm going to redo the auto mask so I can have an additional brush. That is glowing on her face, but oh, no, don't. I was gonna mess with the highlights a little bit, but after seeing that, I'm deciding against it. I think I'm getting to the part where there's just too many different layer effects going on. Get rid of that. See, that one's affecting her face a little bit, so I'm going to brush it away. I think that one is mostly done. This one has finally saved. And you can see that what I did in Photoshop, which was adjust the blending and brushing some bits away so the magic appears around her fingers, through her fingers, instead of just on top of everything. It is affecting the lighting of her horns just a little bit. You can see the greenishness. And to finish it up, we are going to give her a soft green glow on either side. The reason I keep my brush always set to blue is because I'm working on things like this. I can tell automatically, what's being affected. Oops. Look at that and kind of back off a little bit. And that just can't seem to work. That is why. So we're gonna show the layer mask. Start brushing things away. So when you're working with Self Light Magic, you have to kind of decide in each image or in a batch of images how different lights affect things. So the reason I'm not having the magic fully make everything glow is because I'm thinking more of like how a fire spinner's poi, even though it's a good amount of fire, it doesn't light the entire area. It kind of just lights the immediate area. So her magic on her hands is kind of just like poi, just meant to give her a creepy, subtle glow that's immediately next to her face and not much else. When I imagine her using power with her staff, I'm imagining it as more of a grand gesture of power, kind of like as a misleading thing, like making people think that all of her power is solely in her staff so she can surprise them later by shooting them out of her hands. So I kind of want to match the green a little bit. Just that. And I'm going to add a little bit more to the brushing. Oh, that is a little too much. And maybe carry a little here so you can see some of the light from my flash. Instead of giving her a highlight priority, I'm going to do one last one of these. Lower the exposure a bit, up the clarity, so you can really see the detail in the outfit. So when you're looking at stuff like that, you kind of have to kind of decide which image one of that into how this would like affect it. I'm gonna do a quick before after. So the reason I am not having, when looking at this, I am going to get rid of the glow on the face. I think what needs to be said is already said in the hands and on the mask, so I'm gonna get rid of that. Even though it's a good amount of fire, it doesn't light the entire area. It kind of just lights the immediate area. So her magic on her hands kind of just like what this meant to give her a creepy, subtle glow that's immediately next to her face. Oh, my computer seems to not be liking any of this. Okay. So I have a little bit of the green, not as much as I had just previously. It seemed to be a little bit of overkill. Don't want to have any overkill on this image. But there is the focus here because of the radial blur, radial vignette I gave it. And I don't think much more needs to be done with her. I upped the clarity to make sure that this did not fade into blackness. I really did not want this to fade into blackness. She made this entire outfit herself. It's very beautiful. Don't want to get rid of any of that. And in the last 15-20 minutes, I want to look at some of what we did tonight. So at this point of the night, and with the heat being what it is, it seems to be struggling a little bit. Maybe getting a heat before or after would help. So here's our Grundy. Grundy was very fun to do. We did our Aviator gal, the black and white and the color. We did Field Maleficent. I have no idea what was able to be seen of Jack Skellington. I'll be able to see that when I edit the videos tonight. Little Starfire. Comic Fusion. So I'm gonna work with this one really quick in Photoshop just to see what can be fixed about this. There is this planter and a little bit of garbage here. I want to see if we can just get it out of there. According to my clock, the stream is a good 3 minutes behind this. So I can tell that this is really becoming a struggle tonight. Hopefully next week, now that I've figured out some of my issues, we can have the first true issue-free perfect stream. And you just saw an almost perfect content-aware film. That's beautiful. There's a thing of beauty right there. I'm just gonna do a spot here like for a second. This is a real difficulty. I'm not sure there's gonna be enough. I really doubt there's gonna be enough good ground elements to get rid of these trash cans. Well, planter and trash can, but we'll see. Hey, it did a lot. It did a lot more than expected. I'm going to duplicate this again and try and get. Nope, nope. Get the heat dude's feet out of there. And that actually worked way better than I thought it would. It did screw up the bricks a little bit. I'm not too worried about that. What I do want to take care of really quick is just, it's kind of bothering me how this is a completely different yellow than the rest. So I'm going to hit Alt to get a sample, click, and I can just adjust that. Alt click. I really could have done this the first time, I was just feeling a little bit lazy. Okay, we got the same yellow. So I'm just going to leave that as is for now. So we have Benjamin, we have some of the kids that were there, we have a Jawa, we have Grundy, we have a whole slew of characters. I got to work with some, I did get to work with others. We had Billy Mays, who that day did end up joining the, I don't remember what it's called, that's against the Justice League, but he ended up joining them, and his real sales pitch was he can get all of their whites whiter than white after beating up the Justice League, which was actually very funny. Let's see. While that's saving, that I can do with this really quickly. Like I said, we got to play with the fire truck. I've never really had the opportunity to work with the fire truck before. They're surprisingly intimidating. I think it's just because I'm very short, and even getting up to this ledge right here was a little bit difficult. Hey, it did a lot. It did a lot more than expected. Man, upping the contrast really up the saturation incidentally, so I'm gonna have to knock that down a little bit before I put more in. One absolutely great thing about this particular shoot was there's a photographer, Tyrus Flynn, who came, and him and Anna Fisher were kind of like the photographers I admired before getting into steampunk, so got to chat him up a little bit, and it was just really great fun. His kids came, his wife came. I don't think I'd seen him in about 3 years at that point. Tyrus, on the off chance you're listening to this, please let's do another shoot together sometime. Alright, good night. Thanks. Whoa, why'd you do that? Ah, because it just saved. Yeah, Lightroom's doing this new thing where when it saves in Photoshop and brings it into Lightroom, it makes you automatically select it, even if you're working on something else. Not a favorite feature of mine, gotta say, because I was clearly working on this, and all of a sudden I was surprised by suddenly working on something else. We're gonna get some light clarity on the kids. Kids don't need a lot of clarity, arguably. This could be a little bit better. Gotta say, when you do charity events with kids, they are super cute. Especially if it's something out of the norm, like being dressed as a superhero slash supervillain. They don't know what to expect, and if you're the one who's really experienced in doing stuff like this, like you are kind of their guide. Their they'll essentially be little ducklings and kind of imprint on you for the day. And if you're good with kids, or even if you're not good with kids, it's really endearing. I wouldn't say myself that I'm particularly good with kids, but I did enjoy myself. I'm trying to balance out the bright background with dark foreground. A few minutes left on this, so try not to make it take too much time. evening. If there's any sort of, or any video in particular you would like to see, or any editing process you would like to see, please let me know. Send me an email to babs@thefetd.com or message Babs Who Takes Pictures on Facebook. You can also get me on Twitter at BabetteKD. And I will see you next week. Bye bye.